Hey everyone, welcome to the channel where I share creepy and scary stories that will give you chills. If you love horror and spooky tales, make sure to subscribe and join me every week for a new story. Let's get into the dark side together. Alex gripped his camera tightly, the leather strap digging into his wrist. The night was cold, the city streets deserted except for the distant hum of traffic. He had been chasing shadows for years, but tonight felt different. The building loomed ahead, a relic of the 1920s, abandoned for decades. Its windows were dark, some shattered, revealing glimpses of empty rooms stacked like forgotten memories. Alex stepped onto the cracked pavement, camera ready, heart thudding. "This is just another shot," he whispered to himself. The entrance creaked as he pushed the door open. Dust swirled in the dim light from his flashlight. The smell of decay hit his nose, a mix of mold, rust, and something else, something metallic. He raised his camera and took a photo. The flash lit the room, revealing peeling wallpaper, overturned chairs, and the faint outline of what might have been a staircase. But when he looked at the screen, the photo didn't show the room. It showed a figure, standing behind him. Alex spun around. Nothing, just shadows dancing on the walls. He swallowed hard. It's just my imagination. But the building seemed alive now, the walls breathing, the floors groaning. Every step echoed too long, bouncing back with delay, as if the space remembered him before letting go. And then he heard it, a faint whisper, almost beneath the hum of his own pulse. "Alex." He froze. It wasn't coming from any direction. It was inside his head. The whisper lingered in Alex's mind, a soft, insistent pull he couldn't ignore. He swallowed and stepped further into the building. The flashlight beam cut through the darkness, revealing walls that seemed to warp and ripple like water. He paused on the landing of a staircase. Each step creaked under his weight, but the sound echoed as if from 1,000 feet below. The air grew colder, carrying a metallic tang that made his stomach churn. "Just a draft," he muttered, though his voice sounded strange, slightly delayed, like it came from somewhere behind him and ahead at the same time. As he moved, shadows shifted unnaturally. One moment the hall seemed empty. The next, shapes pressed against the walls, just out of focus. He raised his camera again, snapping a shot. The photo revealed nothing he could explain, just an empty hallway, except for a dark smear at the far end. It pulsed subtly, almost like a heartbeat. Alex blinked. The smear was closer. He shook his head. "Stop it. Stop it. It's just shadows." A sudden clang echoed from above. He looked up. The ceiling appeared higher than it had a second ago, stretching into darkness. The staircase behind him was gone, replaced by a floor that twisted away into nothingness. Panic clawed at him. He turned, trying to retrace his steps, but the door he had entered through was gone. In its place, a blank wall, faint veins of black creeping along the plaster. The whisper returned, louder this time. "Alex, you can't leave." He stumbled backward, tripping over debris. When he looked up, the shadows weren't just on the walls. They were moving inside the room itself, distorting the air like ripples in water, forming shapes that were almost human, almost alive. Alex's breathing grew shallow. He gripped the camera tightly, but the lens fogged over, revealing a figure standing right behind him. Just for a moment, he saw its face, a void of absolute black, like the night sky had folded on itself. When he spun around, nothing was there, but the feeling remained, the sense that he was being watched and hunted by something that existed between the cracks of reality itself. Alex's heart hammered against his ribs. The air felt thicker now, each breath burning his lungs. He raised the camera again, but the lens was smeared with condensation, as if the darkness itself had claimed it. The hallway stretched endlessly ahead, lights flickering and buzzing like dying insects. Every door he passed appeared different from the last. One room showed a nursery frozen in time, toys covered in dust. Another was filled with mirrors reflecting, not him, but shadows that twisted independently. He paused, ear straining. A soft thud echoed behind him. Then another. Footsteps, but not his own. Alex turned sharply, flashlight cutting a trembling beam across the hall. Nothing, yet the feeling of eyes on him didn't fade. It grew, pressing into his mind, invading his thoughts. He's here. Not a he in the human sense. Something older, vast, and unshaped. Something that moved between moments, folding reality like paper. Alex ran. The hallway bent strangely as he moved, stretching and contracting in ways that made his stomach lurch. The whispers grew, overlapping, layering his name over and over. Alex, Alex, Alex. He stumbled into a room. His own reflection stared at him from a cracked window. Only it wasn't exactly him. Its eyes were darker, too deep to be human. Its expression twisted into a grin that didn't belong to Alex at all. The whisper became a thought, not heard with ears, but fell inside his skull. You brought me here. Alex's knees buckled. No, this isn't real. But the room responded. The walls pulsed. The floor rippled. Shadows crawled over the ceiling, dripping down like black water. And then he realized he could feel it moving through him, not around him. Every nerve, every heartbeat, every shiver carried its presence. Alex grabbed his head, screaming, "Stop! Leave me alone." The darkness paused, almost as if considering his words. And then, without sound, it shifted, vanishing into the cracks between walls, floors, and ceilings. For a heartbeat, Alex thought he was free. Then he heard the whisper again. "I'm always here. Always." Alex staggered down the corridor, every step heavier than the last. The hallway was no longer straight. Walls bent unnaturally, twisting like smoke. Every door he passed led somewhere different. One opened to a staircase descending into black fog, another into a room where his childhood memories played on repeat, frozen in terrifying stillness. Time itself had started to fracture. The flickering lights above accelerated and slowed unpredictably. He glanced at his watch. Its hands spun wildly, sometimes backward, sometimes forward, never stopping. A distant sound drew him forward, a child laughing. Emily? His daughter. But when he rounded the corner, the hallway stretched endlessly and no child was there. Shadows pooled at his feet, writhing like liquid. He lifted his camera and snapped a photo. When he looked at the screen, it wasn't a photo at all. It was a reflection of himself. But the reflection wasn't moving correctly. It lagged behind, its head tilting, smiling unnaturally, eyes black as night. Alex tried to call out, but his voice echoed a second too late, overlapping itself. "Alex, Alex." He stumbled, falling into a room filled with mirrors. Each mirror reflected not only him but other versions. One screaming silently, one laughing, one dissolving into black smoke. He turned to run, but the door he had entered through was gone. In its place, a wall, veins of darkness creeping like roots, pulsating with a life of their own. Then he heard it. The presence again, not in front of him, not behind him, but inside him. Every thought, every nerve, every memory carried its weight. "You brought me here." Alex pressed his hands to his temples. "No, I didn't. Stop it. Leave me alone." The shadows twisted violently, and the mirrors cracked. Every reflection fractured into hundreds of shards, each showing a slightly different version of the same nightmare. He realized he could no longer distinguish what was real. The building, the corridors, even himself, all were bending, folding into one another. And in the center of it all, a void stared back at him. Alex's breathing was ragged, each inhale like a blade slicing through his lungs. The hallways twisted endlessly around him, some doors opening into rooms he didn't recognize, others looping back on themselves like traps. A cold wind brushed past his neck. He spun around, flashlight shaking in his hands. Nothing. Then he felt it. A presence. Not a shadow, not a figure. A weight in the air itself. His chest tightened. The hairs on his arms stood on end. A whisper inside his mind. "You can see me." Alex froze. "Who? What are you?" No answer. Only the silence of the building breathing around him. And then a flicker at the edge of his vision. Something moved, not quite human, not quite shadow, sliding along the walls. He lifted his camera and snapped a photo. The flash illuminated a corner, and for a heartbeat he saw it. A form made of darkness, taller than any human, limbs stretching at impossible angles, eyes like black voids reflecting infinite stars. Alex stumbled backward, tripping over debris. He hit the wall, sliding down onto the cold tile. The presence pulsed, growing stronger, closer. He could feel inside him now, a creeping pressure in his skull, tugging at memories, distorting thoughts. "Leave me alone!" he screamed, voice cracking. The darkness reacted. It stretched, folding the hallway around him, pressing the ceiling lower, elongating the walls, until he felt trapped in a tube of shadow that pulsed with silent intent. Alex tried to stand, tried to run, but the floor beneath him seemed to ripple like liquid. Every movement was delayed, distorted. His reflection in the broken mirrors along the walls moved wrongly, grinning at him when he was screaming, lagging behind his motions. Then the voice again, inside his head. "I've been inside you all along. You let me out." Alex's stomach dropped. He knew the truth, but he didn't want to admit it. The presence wasn't hunting him. It was waiting for him to recognize it, to remember what he had done, what he had always been capable of. He clutched his head, trying to block the whispers, but they only multiplied. "Alex, you're mine. Always mine." The hallway warped violently, folding on itself. Shadows pooled beneath him, then surged upward, stretching into every corner, until he was surrounded, alone, trapped, and staring at the impossible darkness of the being that had been inside him from the beginning. Alex stumbled through the twisting corridors, each step heavier, slower. The building no longer obeyed the rules of space. Walls stretched endlessly, then shrank into impossibly tight passages. Doors opened to places he had never seen, rooms from his childhood, streets from the city he grew up in, all bleeding into one another. The whispering presence followed him, not with sound, but with weight. Every heartbeat echoed, as though time itself were fracturing. His watch spun wildly, hands spinning forward and backward simultaneously, until the numbers blurred into nothing. He glanced into a mirror. For a split second, it reflected the hallway behind him. Then instantly the image shifted. In the reflection, his own body twisted unnaturally, elongating, shrinking, then splitting into dozens of smaller versions, all staring at him silently. Panic gripped him. He ran, or tried to. The floor beneath him rippled like liquid. Each step felt like moving through thick water. Shadows danced along the walls, but they weren't simply shapes. They were memories, fears, fragments of his own mind given form. Alex could no longer tell if he was ascending a staircase or descending into a basement. The ceiling above him sometimes seemed to stretch into infinity, sometimes pressed down like a tombstone. Time had no meaning. 1 second could be an hour could vanish in a blink. Then he heard her laugh, his sister's voice, faint and distant, a sound from decades past. He spun around, desperate to see her. The hallway bent, folding itself like paper, and she disappeared. A cold pressure pressed into his skull. The presence whispered again, "You can't escape. You never did." Alex fell to his knees, clutching his head. Memories overlapped, past and present colliding. Faces of loved ones appeared and dissolved into black smoke. Rooms changed with every blink. Every photograph in the mirrors now showed not him, but the darkness, stretching, shifting, alive. He screamed, and the scream echoed endlessly, forward, backward, into corners that didn't exist. And then he realized the building, the time, the shadows, none of it was external. It had all been inside him. Alex collapsed against a warped wall, breathing ragged, sweat running down his temples. The corridors around him pulsed with shadows that seemed to stretch out of reality itself. Every surface he touched felt wrong, cold, yet alive, vibrating under his fingers. A whisper curled into his mind. "You can see me now." He forced himself to look up. The shadows coalesced into a shape. Not fully human, not fully animal. It shifted constantly, angles folding impossibly, limbs stretching where none should exist. Its face, if it could be called that, was a black void, a starry emptiness that seemed to swallow light. Alex's stomach churned. The air itself trembled. He could feel it probing inside him, sliding along his nerves, pulling at memories, twisting them into visions of horror. He raised his camera instinctively. The flash lit the room, For a moment, he saw it clearly. Infinite stars where eyes should be, gaping mouthless mouths, shadows crawling like liquid across its body. It moved without walking. It flowed like darkness given form. Alex's mind screamed, "What were you?" The presence didn't answer with words. It pressed its essence into him. He felt every life he had touched, every death he had witnessed, every secret fear he had buried, all exposed, twisted, magnified. It wasn't hunting him. It was showing him himself. Every memory, every pulse, every shadow inside him had always been part of it. He realized a horrifying truth. The darkness wasn't outside. It had been inside him all along. He dropped to his knees, shaking. His own reflection appeared in a broken mirror. Only it wasn't him. Its eyes were endless voids, grinning silently. The whisper returned. "I've always been you. You just forgot." Alex's chest tightened. He could feel the presence spreading, expanding. He wanted to scream, to run, to fight, but the corridors bent, folding him inward. His body felt lighter, then heavier, then weightless. He was no longer just in the building. He was inside himself, a living corridor of fear, memory, and shadow. The darkness pulsed, as if waiting, patient, infinite, and Alex understood there was no escape. Alex floated, or at least he thought he did. The corridor beneath his feet no longer obeyed gravity. The walls, floor, and ceiling twisted around him like liquid smoke, pulsing in rhythm with something vast and unseen. He could no longer distinguish his own breathing from the whispers that filled his mind. Every sound, every shadow, every fragment of memory was alive, interconnected, pulsating, watching. The darkness moved within him now, not around him, but through him, seeping into every nerve, every thought. He tried to speak, but no words emerged. His own voice had become part of the void. A mirror appeared, not a reflection, but a window. He saw himself, countless variations, stretching infinitely, each one distorted, some screaming silently, some laughing, some dissolving into nothingness. And then he saw the truth. He had never been alone. The presence, the shadows, the void, the impossible shape had always been him. A whisper filled his mind, soft, terrible, intimate. "You are not escaping me, Alex. I am you, and you are me." Alex's mind reeled. Every memory he had trusted, every choice he thought he'd made, every person he had loved had all been filtered through the darkness. He tried to resist, to fight, to reclaim himself. But the corridors warped violently, twisting inward until he was trapped in a space with no beginning, no end. The walls, the floor, the ceiling, all bled into the void. His heartbeat slowed, then stopped, then pulsed irregularly, as if time itself had abandoned him. And in that instant, Alex understood. The darkness was an enemy. It was the core of him, the truth of his existence, waiting to be acknowledged. A final whisper resonated inside his skull. "And now you'll remember." The corridor folded in on itself. The shadows coalesced. Every reflection, every memory, every fear merged into a single, infinite blackness. Alex was gone. Or perhaps he had always been the darkness. Alex's mind had finally surrendered. The corridors, the shadows, the warped memories, they were all fragments of himself. He was no longer running through a building. He was the building. Every wall, every creak, every flicker of light existed because of him. The darkness gathered not around him, but inside him, spreading into every corner of his consciousness. It whispered his name, not with malice, but with inevitability. "Alex, remember who you are." He tried to speak, tried to call out, but the sound was not his own. It echoed through infinite hallways, through impossible rooms, through the void that had become his mind. Then he saw it clearly, his own reflection, countless versions of himself, fractured and twisted, staring from mirrors that existed nowhere and everywhere. And in each one, the same truth shimmered. He was not escaping the darkness. He was the darkness. Every life he thought he had lived, every shadow he had feared, every horror he had witnessed, it had all been a memory of himself, the being that had haunted him, that had stolen the lives of those he loved in his mind. It had always been his own essence, manifesting in the cracks of reality. The corridors folded inward, collapsing into a single point. The whispers coalesced into one voice, calm now, cosmic in scale. I am infinite. I am eternal. And you're mine. Alex understood. He tried to resist, but there was nothing left to resist. The boundaries of his mind, his body, his reality had dissolved. He was hollow, and yet he was everything. The final thought echoed through him as the void consumed all. I wasn't running from the darkness. I was the darkness. And then there was silence. No corridors. No mirrors. No memories. Only the infinite, unyielding void of himself. The end.